what really appeals to me about the space. They're not looking to just build one more centralized platform that gets acquired and forgotten about over the course of years. I really want to be building things that could endure for decades or hundreds of years when people are looking back.
Hello, welcome to DevTools-fm. This is a podcast about developer tools and the people who make them. I'm Andrew, and this is my co-host, Justin.
Hey everyone, we're really excited to have Eli Mallon on with us. So Eli, you're building this thing called Stream.place. We're really excited to talk about that. But before we dive into talking about that and what you've worked on in the past, would you like to tell our audience a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. My name's Eli Mallon. I have been working in decentralized video in one way or another since 2016, 2017 or so. Try to get my own startup going on that kind of thing. The whole time it's been, the plan has been figure out how to more or less break Twitch's monopoly of certain kinds of live streaming. I love the streamers on that platform, but don't love that platform for lots of different ways. So we can get into that, but tried to get a startup started for that originally. Doing that led me to LivePeer, where I was working on decentralized video streaming in the Web3 space for a long time. And since last July, I've been working full-time on Streamplace, which is live video for the app protocol. So if we are, if Blue Sky's trying to make Twitter using the app protocol, we are trying to make Twitch using the app protocol, is the short explanation of that.
Cool. Before we dive into Streamplace, I want to dig into what LivePeer is, because you say decentralized video, and I'm like, what does that actually mean in practice? And so let's just start off with that. Yeah,
so LivePeer is a few different things, but the core of it is a decentralized network of orchestrators. So if you are, if you're a video streaming platform, in particular, if you're what we would call a UGC platform, right, user-generated content, something like Twitch, where it's lots of, you're not trying to broadcast the World Cup to 2 billion people at once. What you have are lots and lots of, thousands and thousands of streamers with medium-sized audiences. The biggest pain point for you in that situation is going to be transcoding. To effectively provide video over the internet, you need to take in, a 1080p or 4K source, process it, turn it into 720p, 240p output. So even on a phone, on a really bad cell connection in a developing country, you can still see a really blurry version of the output. You only need to do that once per input stream, but if you are, so if you're doing the World Cup, you don't care. But if you're that, if you're a UGC platform, you need to do it once per stream, and that gets very, very expensive. When I started out in this, I haven't checked this number in a while, but when I started out in this, Google and Amazon were charging about $1 an hour to process this kind of video, which is silly because consumer grade NVIDIA video cards, among other hardware, can do this sort of processing pretty inexpensively, right? We benchmarked like a 1660 Ti, which is a pretty old, mid-grade NVIDIA card at this point, and saw that it was that could handle processing about 12 of these streams. So the thinking behind the LivePeer decentralized network of orchestrators is you send out this video rather than to a centralized platform. You send it out just into the world, into different people's computers that can do this sort of processing. They send it back to you, and they get paid via cryptocurrency is the short version of that. And it's effective. Again, these numbers are a little bit out of date, but last time I checked, it was compared to about $1 an hour for Amazon and Google. The LivePeer network could process it for about 17 cents an hour. So it's pretty radical cost reduction.
So how latency sensitive are these applications? It seems like that'd be a big thing. If you're doing a live stream, I know you have a little bit of delay between when you're recording and when it's going out anyway, but what is the latency sensitivity in this space?
Yeah, it's pretty good. The nice thing about a decentralized network is you can hopefully find an orchestrator that's very near to you geographically, so that helps save on everything. Our target is always just fast. It was always historically faster than real time, right? So if you send in we're a live streaming platform. If you send me 1 second of video, I need to get it processed in 1 second or less, or somebody's going to have a bad time. So that's the target for it, and it's usually able to hit that. Yeah.
Big thanks to WorkOS for sponsoring this episode of DevTools-fm. If you're gearing up to sell to bigger customers, there's a moment when you realize it's not just about the features anymore. It's also about security, compliance, IT integrations, stuff you probably really didn't plan for. WorkOS makes that moment way easier. It's a complete platform for enterprise features. So think SSO with SAML or OAuth, SEIM directory sync, audit logs, fine-grained auth, you name it. But the best part is how fast it can get you there. WorkOS gives you clean, modern APIs and great SDKs across most major languages, and genuinely well-written docs. It feels less like wrestling with an integration and more like flipping a switch. You need an admin portal? They've got one. Need secure storage for credentials? That's built in. Need domain verification or webhook events? They've got it. So every piece of WorkOS is modular, polished, and built with developers in mind, so you can stay focused on building your product and not getting buried in enterprise requirements. If that sounds good to you, you should check them out. Go to workos.com. And again, thanks to WorkOS team for sponsoring us.
Cool. So that's where you did work, but while you were there, the idea for Streamplace came to you. So how did Streamplace come out of your work at LivePeer?
Yeah, so there were a couple different things. My explanation of that is always LivePeer had an era in there where we sponsored lots and lots of hackathons all over the world. I personally attended hackathons on 4 different continents. And so I was always there sitting at the LivePeer booth, and people would come up to us and they would say things like, oh, LivePeer, that's like decentralized Twitch or decentralized YouTube, right? And because it was this processing platform, we had to give what I thought was a fairly uncompelling answer, right? We had to say, well, it's more like infrastructure upon which somebody else could build decentralized Twitch or YouTube. And what's your idea for this sort of thing? And I always wanted to be like, yeah, it's like decentralized Twitch or YouTube. And here's what a decentralized live stream is. And here's what a decentralized VOD is. But for a variety of reasons, LivePeer itself, like LivePeer Inc., where I worked, didn't want to get into that sort of thing. So another thing that happened around that time was the LivePeer cryptocurrency, LPT, had established a treasury. Basically, a percentage of LPT every day goes into this big pool. You can submit proposals to that treasury and get awarded seed money, essentially, for different ventures that they thought would be beneficial to the LivePeer network. So that was sort of the area I wanted to go, coincided with that happening, and there was just sort of an opportunity there. So I pitched them on the idea of doing a project that was a little bit more focused on social video, figuring out and inventing, what does a decentralized live stream actually mean? What does a decentralized VOD actually mean? And they approved it, and I left the company to start Streamplace in July of last year.
Were there any other people trying to do this same sort of thing of like recreate other social networks on this decentralized primitive?
Yeah, there's been a few different projects over the years. I would say there's a few in the Web3 space. There's the biggest one in the ActivityPub space is called there's PeerTube, which was sort of their YouTube reimplementation, and Owncast, which is sort of a host your own Twitch stream kind of thing. And I liked both of those projects, but I would say it's just sort of similar to Blue Sky's critique of ActivityPub, where it's sort of designed for individual servers and individual people to be exchanging data, and not really for like a big world. Like here's all the streams out there in the world right now, that kind of thing. So for the same reasons, we were sort of searching for a different primitive, a different way to represent all of this, which led us directly to the app protocol and Blue Sky and that sort of thing.
So where does the app protocol come in? So you're building this decentralized social video platform. App protocol is like very open. You can build a lot of social products on it. Like, how does that play into video?
Yeah, absolutely. So, sort of our struggle a lot of the time was we had sort of video primitives. I knew how to make a live stream. I knew how to upload a video and send it to people. But then the gap between that and something like a Twitch platform is not necessarily video know-how. It's what does it mean to follow somebody? How do you get notified when somebody goes live? What are your friends? If I'm going to host another user, I'm done live streaming, I'm going to host or raid another user. What is that user even, right? Like what is that other piece? And so where the app protocol became a very natural fit was in this sort of pre-existing social graph that we could use to bootstrap the network and have really clear answers to all of those questions immediately, as well as what I think is a really compelling decentralized architecture in the PDS fleet. The reading the app protocol for the first time for me was so interesting in that it was so clearly written by people that had tried Scuttlebutt, tried Nostr, tried crypto in the Web3 space, tried all of these different things and been frustrated with all of them, which I had been sort of following all of those communities and experienced frustration. And they sort of landed at this place where it's incredibly decentralized. I operate my own PDS. I have custody of my own signing keys. Nobody else can forge my signature and claim to be Eli on or at ime.ly on the app protocol. But with enough compromises in there that you can still have an email password sign up, which is what people are actually looking for, right? And you don't have the activity pub problem where you need to go figure out which federated server that you're going to jump into immediately. So in that context, I thought that was really, really appealing. We weren't 100% committed to it. And then Blue Sky really blew up after the election last year and ballooned into, I think they're going to hit 35 million users today or something like that. And so at that point, it became very clear to us. It's like, oh, okay, live video for the app protocol is like an excellent niche for us to occupy.
Yeah, and it feels like app protocol has just like these different properties that make making a primitive like that a little bit different. On more like in the centralized web, only Twitch can do Twitch streaming well, and it's in their best interest to only do it on their website. But since like I'd say the ethos of app proto is like openness and sharing, that doesn't really apply. So like you have streams, I can integrate your streams onto other platforms or even my own platform. So like, how are you thinking about Streamplace as like a primitive in the ecosystem rather than like just a one-off Twitch replacement?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we're most excited about is the tagline of the company is, or the mission statement of the company is solving video for everybody forever. Which is what really appeals to me about the space. They're not looking to just build one more centralized platform that gets acquired and forgotten about over the course of years. I really want to be building things that could endure for decades or hundreds of years when people are looking back. So, what we've really invented at Streamplace is a novel form of decentralized broadcast. So a live stream can be modeled as I take your stream, I slice it up into 1 second MP4 files, and I throw those files into your face 1 per second, right? That's really, most of the time, that's what's happening behind the scenes when you're watching a live stream, is you're just getting video file after video file over and over and over again. So what we've done is take those 1 second video segments, we sign them with a user's key. It's what's called a C2PA signature. I can get into that. It's from the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity, which was a project from Adobe and the BBC to sort of get us ready for a world full of deepfakes. When anybody can deepfake anything, how are you ever going to trust the video you're looking at? And part of what they invented over there was sort of this novel signing scheme where there's a cryptographically secure signature, but it's embedded within the MP4 file. So if you run Streamplace on your computer and look under the hood, actually look at the files, all you're looking at is a series of 1 second MP4 files with these sort of embedded signatures. So super easy to work with while also being cryptographically secure and having all the sort of properties you'd need for decentralized broadcast. So the thinking then is you can post these MP4 files to a Streamplace node that can propagate all over the internet, and you can download those segments from sketchiest website in the world.ru and still be confident that you're looking at the right thing through the magic of cryptographic signing. Where the app protocol comes in right now is that signing key gets posted to your PDS, just the same way you make a Blue Sky post. And so that that signing key gets associated with your @protocol identity, and we can sort of draw a line then between the Streamplace stream and your your Blue Sky account or your @protocol account, right? I would like to deepen that integration a little bit. That is, cryptographically secure, but still a relatively shallow integration with the @protocol, in that it's just this one key that gets posted there. As we move into doing things like archiving live streams and clipping, I want to deepen the integration there. What I can't do is just take every 1 second video segment and throw them into your Blue Sky account, into your @proto PDS, right? Because I would immediately run afoul of rate limits. That's gonna get us banned from all of the hosted PDSs very, very quickly. So we're gonna have to be a little bit cleverer than that and come up with, I think, some novel mechanisms for syncing those two things while not overwhelming the PDS, basically. But that's how you sort of draw a line between all the different pieces of the architecture there.
Yeah, it would be cool if the PDS did offer that, though, since like one of the like table stakes opportunities Blue Sky's going at is like you own your content, it comes with you. But if there's a big asterisk and it's like, but if you posted a video, it's not actually hosted in your account and it's hosted in a third party, and that might go away at some point and you'll not have it. So it's like, that seems like an odd line to be there.
It's a really interesting thing from a product perspective too, because as a live streamer, you're not necessarily expecting that the moment you live stream something that is archived forever and anyone can seek back through it and that sort of thing, right? At a minimum, you might want like a minute delay on your live stream being archived in case something embarrassing happens, or you might want to wait. You might want to do a full 4-hour live stream and then afterward decide whether or not that gets archived to your account, that sort of thing. These are all the sort of user assumptions that people coming from other streaming platforms will have that we need to accommodate within the framework of credible decentralization and still figure out how all of those pieces work. So we're not finalized on any particular design there, but from both a technical and user perspective, there's some interesting things to accommodate.
So are you still using, are you using LivePeer, like a version of LivePeer for transcoding? Okay, cool.
Yep. So within the Streamplace node, we have an integration with the LivePeer gateway so that all of the, if you do a 4K live stream through Streamplace, that will send it to the LivePeer network, processed into 1080p. I think it's 1080p, 720p, 360p, and 160p right now. It all works together really well. You can watch a lower quality rendition of everything. One thing we haven't had a chance to do yet, but I really want to sort of upgrade the LivePeer network to use this C2PA signing scheme that I described earlier, where one of the recurring things for LivePeer is how do you trust this, right? If you sent it just to somebody, how do you trust that the output is good? And there are some technical responses to that, in that you can do sort of a partial decode of the output and do some clever mathematics to make sure that the output looks kind of like the input, in a way where you could trust it. But there's also sort of a social element to it, where if you can look at that and see, oh, somebody took in my video segment and just sent me back empty black frames that were very cheap for them to produce. If there's an embedded signature in there, you could look and say, okay, well, I'm never going to use this orchestrator ever again, kind of thing. One way I hope we can push the LivePeer network forward as well.
This episode is sponsored by Mailtrap, an email platform that developers love. Go for high deliverability, industry-best analytics, and live 24/7 support. You can get 20% off for all plans with the promo code devtools. Check out the details in the description below. To shift the conversation a little bit, so centralized platforms are just generally easier to monetize. For better or worse, like they're centralized because that makes a good business. You can have a lot of control over not just like technical decisions, but like over the presentation and like where it shows up and how content is shared and like all these things. And one of the key things in what you're saying here, like kind of what you want to build is like more agency for people to like maybe want to embed your stream on your site and all these other things. But you're integrating with the live peer network for video transcoding. Video is, even though you're like doing something that's technically a lot cheaper than the status quo, it's still, not free. It's still like a potentially expensive thing. So as you're going through this journey, how are you thinking about revenue, managing costs, like what the shape of the business looks like while still achieving sort of your social and technical goals?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it very much an open question for the entirety of the app protocol ecosystem, where there's been a couple, Blue Sky's well funded, and we saw Graze and Skylight both receive some sort of seed funding, and then us, of course, from the Treasury. But to my knowledge, that's the end of the list. Not a lot of people are really figuring out how to get paid doing this yet. And of course, that's particularly important to us building live video infrastructure, which is arguably the most expensive thing you can possibly do. Twitch got to where it is by being, Amazon's the company that's willing to just shovel money into the money pit until they've bled out all of their competitors. And that's where and that really happened, including like Microsoft getting out of the game. They had Mixer, which was supposed to be their option. Facebook had Facebook gaming. All of these things have sort of fallen by the wayside because Amazon just was willing to go at it for longer. So we're very interested in tackling that problem head on, so as to not just run into an immediate financial wall. Two answers there. One is LivePeer recently sponsored the first Atmosphere conference, which was the first at protocol conference in Seattle. And micropayments was probably the most common word that I heard there. Everybody agrees on the app protocol needing some form of micropayments for supporting creators and for supporting platforms. As a streaming platform, that's of course like especially core to us, right? Because that's what people, subscriptions and tips and bits and all of these sorts of things are very core primitives that our users expect. I would love for Streamplace not to be the ones that invent that alone. It's something that a lot of us in the ecosystem need. I would love for that to be a collaborative effort that we all sort of come together and figure out what that's going to look like. I will say, given my background, the conversation I had a lot at the conference was someone would say to me, "Hat Protocol needs micropayments, and here's my idea for it." And they would say a bunch of words. And then I would say, "That sounds like a cryptocurrency." And they would say, "Oh, no. Here's the reasons why it's not." So there's a tension there in using these sort of cryptographic primitives to represent payments, but not going full blockchain, which is sort of unpopular in that community. So I don't have the resolution there, but I'm sort of watching all of that with interest.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting how like App Proto itself is a decentralized thing, and just by that alone makes it almost like a cousin to cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And like a lot of things that get me excited about App Proto, like owning my own account, that's very much like having a wallet where people can put things. They just happen not to be coins right now. So like this friction point in the community where it's like crypto bad because we all think crypto bad, but like crypto has some benefits that could be really useful in a decentralized social network. So like what I know you said you didn't have an answer, but like how do you think it should work?
Well, I think it should work is a funny way to think about that. You said it's like having a wallet. I would go one step further. It is having a wallet. Like your PDS has a signing key associated with it, which is an SECP 256K1 key, which is also known as an Ethereum key or a Bitcoin key, right? That's the thing actually securing all of your data in there. We don't think of it like that, but there's you can make the case that we're about 95% of the way there. App Protocol is not a blockchain, is the thing that the creators like to point out. That is, it doesn't have the sort of necessary mathematical structures to make it a blockchain. Whether that is a sufficient condition to be or not be a cryptocurrency is a little more up in the air. How do I think it should work? my prediction is that the first project that successfully integrates those two things, sort of cryptocurrency payments with the YAT protocol, will be both extremely unpopular and very, very successful. I don't necessarily think I want to be the one to do it, but I do think that it is probably inevitable. And we should figure out when it, rather than trying to just complain about it, we should figure out, okay, when this happens, what's our reaction to it, and how would we like it to look, that sort of thing. I don't know. I don't really have an advocacy for that going forward. I've sort of got my own sort of the video thing going on. I don't necessarily take it there. I will observe that, like, I think the Blue Sky team really gets it in that the term they've been using for what people don't like is hyper-financialization, right? What they don't want is what people think of as blockchain stuff, mathematical structures notwithstanding, right? They don't want, NFTs embedded in posts and people pushing their tokens on the network and that sort of thing. And I think that's perfectly understandable and something to go for, but it's a very, very interesting and fine line to walk there, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Because if we follow the definitions we just set up, a post is just an NFT. Like, that's all it is.
Right. And it doesn't, I like to point out that the required fields of an NFT, according to the EIP 721 standard, are title and image. So if you've ever put those two things together and sign them in a decentralized way, you've officially done a cryptocurrency and are condemned, right? So have to figure out that part.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like an interesting thing because it's like one of the areas where it may actually make a lot of sense for it to be a cryptocurrency, and just like, I don't know, we have to sort of acknowledge the cultural baggage that comes with this, and there's like a big knee-jerk reaction against it, and I think it's not completely unwarranted, right? Because there is a lot of like scams and people just like, pushing out cryptocurrencies that are just like themselves only the coin or whatever. That is the only like value of the thing that they're providing. Whereas like this is like just a mechanism to make transacting easier. It's like you would have to have that bridge between, what is the real world finances and how do things get on this network. But also there's like, if there's a conversion, there's like economics to this where it can go up in value and down in value. And like, how do you, manage this reliably and safely and like give people confidence in the system that's non-technical, and so there are like all those like really gnarly human problems that would still have to be figured out, I think.
Yeah, it's been really interesting for me where, everybody at LivePeer either had a crypto background or a video background, and I was sort of a video guy. I had experience with Scuttlebutt, but not really with cryptocurrencies going into it. So it's been a really interesting transition to me going from I was sort of went into crypto with a healthy skepticism and never got super into the degen culture or anything like that on that side of things. And then I turn around and I'm in the room with the app protocol and I'm the only one there that's been funded by a cryptocurrency treasury. And all of a sudden I go, oh wait, I'm the crypto advocate in this room now. That's really interesting. But I've sort of found myself a centrist between those communities in some ways. I don't think it's a problem. I guess I reiterate that I don't think it's. I think we need to get ready for when it happens, rather than try and maybe I guess the accelerationist argument would be to try to make it happen so it happens under ways we control. Not something I'm super interested in doing. Kind of got this video thing going on, but I do think it's probably too close to the underlying. We're literally using Ethereum libraries to parse at protocol primitives and do signing and that sort of thing, right? Like it's a distinction without a difference under a certain level of once you peel back the technical layers a little bit. So interested to see how that plays out for sure.
Yeah, so getting back to video things, we're on a developer tools podcast, and I think it would be nice to talk about how like developers can use Streamplace as a tool. I was also at the Atmosphere conference, and a conversation that really interested in me, and I actually like thought of the idea before I heard you guys talk about it. But you teaming up with Skylight Social to be like the live video aspect of their TikTok clone.
Yeah.
So, like, can you go into that a little bit and maybe once you're done with that, how that might translate to other people building other platforms and even building their own websites?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, shout out to Skylight, second biggest app in the app protocol ecosystem now. It's 150,000, 200,000 users, something like that now. Tori and Reed, also Seattle locals like me, so that's been awesome working with them and working to get Streamplace into there. But yeah, like you got at. So we're working now to embed Streamplace streams within the Skylight Social app. But that is as a prototype of just shipping the Streamplace primitives as JavaScript libraries that can then get embedded within React and React Native apps. So that's on the client side. We're looking to make that very easily embeddable and make that just an obvious choice for any at protocol ecosystem app that wants to have live video. Let's make it the obvious choice, right? Streamplace, obviously. Here's npm install Streamplace and get started, that kind of thing. On the infrastructural side, so something I've been very, very committed to since the beginning of Streamplace, from a developer tooling perspective, is that it is a single file binary. It's not microservices. It's not a Docker container, though we do ship a Docker distribution. It is one single file node. And if you want to make changes to it, you can clone our repo, change some code, run make, and you have that one single file statically linked node with no dependencies that works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And that's something I got wrong. Like I'm tempted to say we got wrong, but that's something I got wrong specifically early on in LivePeer Studios development. Is not for any particular reason, but this tech industry sort of runs on microservices, right? And I get it. If you're Microsoft and you have to coordinate 1,000 teams globally, you're going to want yourself some microservices. But coming from an open source and decentralized primitive sort of perspective, you don't want. We had LivePeer Studios' whole stack was open source, but nobody other than us could run it because it was like 6 different services that all got deployed to a Kubernetes cluster and communicated with each other and had different dependencies and all of that. And I tried to bring it together and ship it out in a project called LivePeer in a Box, and that just never went anywhere. And so this is sort of my not pro monolith approach necessarily, but this has been sort of my advocacy, is that for decentralized networks like this, you really need to have the easiest possible development experience. So it's a single file. You can be just a sort of power user, very sort of enthusiast about this stuff. If you just know how to make a VPS, upload the file, run the node, and you can get started really, really easily. So those are our sort of 2 approaches, but still get the benefit. This is something I really learned from working with Blue Sky and the app protocol ecosystem. The coolest thing about that is it's all production data, right? As soon as you start developing your app, you connect to the fire hose, and here's like 5 megabits of Blue Sky posts and likes and follows and everything that are flowing right through you. And you can really sort of build in production. It's not this sort of sandboxed, fake data kind of thing where you're only building things in your own little toolkit there. So that's the other piece, is you run your own Streamplace node, configure it to replicate streams with other Streamplace nodes, and you can work directly with the data there, right? Something I haven't done this a lot, but something I do on my own. So I do development streams for Streamplace almost every day. And I love to, now that we're a little further along, I can download my actual segments of my live stream into my dev node and change how they're processed and push them back out, right? Very sort of meta approach to doing development. So that's another piece of it, is the building and production and making it as easy as possible to people to get apps that are working with the actual data.
One interesting question that I always like to ask people when they're building on App Proto is like, So @proto has this notion of a lexicon. It's like you can sort of define your own schema for your own data type, and then Blue Sky has their lexicon. So if you use theirs, it shows up as content on Blue Sky, and if you use your own, just like you kind of got to figure out how to display it or whatever. And I'm curious, like, what is your balance for that? It's like, how much do you think about using like the regular @proto lexicon, like just to have things show up like on the Blue Sky site versus like, we want to have like custom data for our platforms or whatever, and we want to use our own lexicon for that. What does that balance look like for y'all?
Great question. Really active discussion in the community right now about that sort of thing. I can give a really concrete example of how that has sort of played out for us. The very first version. So if you're a live streaming platform, you need chat. We actually got pretty much 0 users until we had chat, because that was sort of a necessary condition to having the audience interaction that makes people actually want to do this sort of thing. So the first version of chat we shipped was Blue Sky replies. So basically, when you go live, and this part's still true, when you go live, it makes a Blue Sky post, and it's got your thumbnail there and your sort of stream title, and a link so people can click and watch your Streamplace stream. And so the first version of chat that we shipped, when you typed a chat reply in there, it posted a reply to that post on Blue Sky, which was interesting and funny. It would lead to, so afterward, after a long live stream, you've had this sort of Blue Sky post that's got 700 replies, but none of them are threaded. So it's all just sort of like throwing random messages out here, and people are like, what is this? I don't understand what's happening here. So got some feedback on that. Ended up moving it to our own lexicon. So instead of being a app.bsky.feed.post, they became place.stream.chat.messages. And so now we don't have that problem anymore, but it really hurts visibility, right? One of the things that was nice about the silly old system is that people saw all these weird, random, non-threaded replies, and they're like, what's going on here? What is this? And then they would go click on the stream and go find out what it is. So it was actually a little unpopular among some folks for us to make that change. And so this has been, one area where it would be great if there's a middle ground, right? Right now it feels very all or nothing, where either we're making Blue Sky posts, which works, but is sort of this semantic mismatch, or you're making Streamplace chat messages, which are, we can customize to our needs, but they don't right now show up anywhere else until other people build integrations. So I would love if there was sort of a middle ground in there. One thing I had a conversation with a couple folks on the Blue Sky team about would be, Blue Sky's probably, but obviously, when you're doing what I do, people come up to you a lot and they say, "Oh, I understand at protocol live streams. So are they going to be in the Blue Sky app?" And I say, maybe. Like, it's not really up to me, right? I would love for that to be true someday. Obviously, they have moderation concerns because we exist sort of unlike something like Skylight videos, which are also Blue Sky posts and are sort of under the protective aegis of their moderation infrastructure. We operate outside of that and have to do our own. So very legitimately, they've got concerns about making sure that stuff gets moderated well and that sort of thing. But something I had a conversation about, which would be an interesting middle ground for us, would be something like a presence API, which is to say, I think Discord calls these activities, but basically it's like, I'm live right now, and that means there's a red circle around my avatar, and you can click that and see where I'm live, and then go to a different app or a different website to actually watch the live stream. So something like that would be, I think, a really interesting middle ground where they don't have to be responsible for hosting the content, but they still sort of throw a bone to the other platforms and post them in that same direction. You could obviously do something like a story in the same way, I would imagine, which is another interesting category of thing where a story on almost every platform is a temporary piece of content, right? Where it's like an expiring video that will exist for 8 hours and then go away, that kind of thing. So some interesting places there. I tend to think I don't like the idea of ever really having different social graphs on the protocol. I understand that the argument is that your LinkedIn friends and your Instagram friends might be a different group of people, but I don't really. I think one of the biggest selling points of the ad protocol is that you have this sort of portable social graph that works across a lot of different apps, and you don't have to re-find your friends when you move from Blue Sky to Skylight to Streamplace to what have you. So there's different schools of thought on this, and I guess I would tend toward like interconnection maximalism would be the term, I guess. Just as much as possible, I would love if we were all using the same lexicons and had interoperable data, and lots of apps feature data from lots of different lexicons that were designed by lots of different teams. Hope we can push that direction.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of the interconnected maximalists too. It's just like we currently live in a world of walled gardens, and like trying to imagine the world not like that is hard. We've never really seen that. Like you could say maybe Web 1.0, but Web 1.0 is like so bare bones that it barely even resembles the modern world. So like kind of like the walled garden aesthetic, but with interconnected data, it just seems like it could be so fun. Like Blue Sky itself is trying to be a Twitter replacement, and Twitter is trying to be the everything app. I think Blue Sky, oddly enough, has a better opportunity to be an everything app since all of the data is already open. There's nothing to say that they won't start displaying your streams or posts from Whitewind or images from flashes all in one app. I'm very interested just to see where all the innovation goes in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality of it is, if you're decentralizing successfully, you don't want you want lots of apps that work with the same set of data, and you want there to be lots of apps, right? So part of our pitch to big Twitch streamers when we're sort of ready to start going after them is, don't switch from Twitch to Streamplace. Switch from Twitch to your own app that has its own presence in the App Store and Play Store, and you have a direct relationship with your fans. But because it's powered by Streamplace infrastructure, you still have sort of all the creature comforts you would expect from a rich live streaming platform, right? You have chat, you can host other streamers, you can even decide to sort of promote. You've got your own sort of squad, and they all show up within your app, and people go to your app to watch their streams, but then they launch their own app and it jumps over to there. I think that's I don't know. I think that's super promising. Big Twitch streamers are sort of medium-sized businesses unto themselves, right? With the revenue they bring in and the sort of audiences they have. The hard part, and this was also a huge topic at Atmosphere Conf, is how do we explain any of this stuff to average users, right?
Yeah.
So it's so hard because you start with, okay, it's Blue Sky is Twitter, but it's Jay instead of Elon, and we're all happy. Okay. Well, actually, it's built on these things called PDSs, personal data servers, and that's where all of your data lives. And now there's other apps in there. And it's so impossible to because people think they get it because they've seen sign in with Google and sign in with Facebook before. Yeah. So they're like, oh, they go to Streamplace and it's like, oh, it's sign in with Blue Sky. I understand what that means. And it's like, no, actually, there's something more interesting and awesome happening here, which is that it's not just you're using it as an OAuth mechanism. And I've already used the word OAuth, so I've lost everybody. But it's not just that, but it's that you are interacting. It's this different app interacting with your same set of data. And can build lots of interesting things in that way. And there's nothing like that really. Web3 people get it because all your data is on chain and different apps interact with that. That's fine. But your average user, there's nothing to compare it to really. And so I don't know. I think it's a huge open problem is how to educate people and sort of sell them on how that works.
Yeah, there are lots of thorns there. And even with just login, which is kind of just like a little mind boggling, like even as a developer, understanding how login is different and what that means for you is a hard thing to get around. Cause like I work at Gray's and we've had our own OAuth issues. And I was like, why are we having issues with OAuth? It's just like a thing that everything does. but it's because, like, in a normal situation, you have a centralized server, you go OAuth with them. In the PDS world, there is no centralized server. It's wherever your PDS is. So you're logging into your PDS, and there's this whole weird flow of like, okay, I'm logging into Graze. Wait, nope, I'm actually logging into this PDS over here, and it kicks me back to Graze. So even explaining that difference succinctly to a non-technical user is a challenge literally everybody in the ecosystem is facing right now.
100%. And even among folks that want to, help to, inarguably things are pretty centralized around Blue Sky right now, among the PDS fleet, the relay, and the app view. And even among advocates, you hear them say, oh, we really need to stand up our own app views and stuff like that. But that's nothing in the abstract, right? Unless you're going to fork Blue Sky and make your own app that then connects to your own app view and makes sort of different editorial decisions than the Blue Sky app view makes. Yeah, that's something. But just running your own app view does nothing by itself, right? Streamplace is an app view, but it's not a Blue Sky app view. You can't point the Blue Sky app at Streamplace and get meaningful data back from it and that sort of thing. So yeah. I mean, just like even among the community, getting them to understand everything. And then even there's a step lower than that like even I'm learning new things about the protocol all the time. I'm pretty much as in it as anybody could be at this point, but it's still learning like an interesting distinction about the app protocol from stuff like Web3 and Scuttlebutt, where I used to work around, is in those, and Nostr actually, is in those systems, you sign a message and that sort of then exists in the abstract. And I could show you this message and prove to you that it's signed with a certain Ethereum key or Scuttlebutt key or what have you. In app proto, you sign the root of the Merkle tree of your PDS repo. So you only ever sign something that, rather than signing one piece of data, you essentially sign all of your data all of the time. And the distinction there is really important because it means you can delete stuff, right? You delete one of your Blue Sky posts, and then your new signature has this, and then that Blue Sky post doesn't really exist in the abstract as something that could get passed around or indexed anymore. So I think that's like a really profound architectural decision that even I didn't know that until like a couple months ago when I was poking around at different syncing heuristics and that sort of thing, right? So there's a lot there.
So one of the things that we like to ask all of our guests is usually like a forward-facing question. And I feel like you are working kind of on the leading edge of a lot of these technologies. I mean, I feel like the decentralized movement in general has always been ahead of the curve in like technical thinking and figuring out like how do we make things more safe and more sustainable and et cetera. So in some ways you've been kind of living in the future, but like as you are working on Streamplace now and thinking about like what's next, what do you think the like social media, social platforms, digital world looks like in the next few years? How is it going to change? What do you think are going to be the big developments?
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate Elon's buying and trashing of Twitter for, I think, sort of giving the best possible example of social media and social networking is something that is too important to trust to any centralized company. I credit Blue Sky with coming up with the term billionaire proof for describing their own infrastructure. And I think that's really where things are going to be heading forward. I can tell you from it's been interesting. Here's one way to frame that question that's interesting for developers, I think, is that when I sort of came up, I graduated college in 2013. That was sort of coming out of the era of Google as this sort of, everybody's like, their campus is so cool. And it's this like amazing place to work on all of this sort of technology that sort of led to this, what I think of in my head is sort of the golden era of the startup, early Y Combinator stuff, where it was, this is really, these are teams changing the world, and they've got these cool cultures, and that's where I really want to work. That's awesome. And then fast forward a little bit further, and you see a lot of those startups getting bought out by huge conglomerates. You see a lot of them, like Vine doesn't exist anymore, got bought out by Twitter and then just like thrown away, that sort of thing. And so I think people have grown a little wiser about that sort of thing. And so when we're pitching Streamplace to people, obviously it's sort of this funny, grandiose tagline, solving video for everybody forever. But I do really think that if you're a young developer coming up right now, you're sick of working on, you don't want to just work on something that's going to get acquired and thrown away in 5 years, right? That's not interesting to you. If you're coming out of this and you're idealistic and ambitious, you want to work on problems that will continue to be relevant forever. And solutions that I really do hope that 100 years from now, people can go look at my Streamplay streams and use the same parse the signing format and validate that this was, in fact, one of my streams 100 years from now, that sort of thing. So I'm really, it starts with like the developer will, where people just want to push things in that direction. And then coupled with, this is like the Web3 background, but it doesn't need to mean working in open source doesn't need to mean you're a single developer working by yourself and not getting paid, right? There's a lot of ways to sort of start to, Blue Sky's obviously got an enormously successful open source app. And there's a lot of ways to start to figure out how to fund that sort of thing and fund, Blue Sky and Skylight are both formed as public benefit corporations like Kickstarter is, right? Where it's not just operating for profit forever. It's this sort of thing. So I think there's going to be a lot of, I guess I'll just put it as like, I wouldn't want to be just like a ruthless cutthroat for profit startup trying to hire the best and brightest developers, because I don't think that's where the interest is going to be. And I think the really talented folks are going to want to work in the open, that kind of thing. As to where we head from here, what is the end result of that world look like? I think we're seeing sort of the beginnings of it right now with the app protocol. In some ways, I hope it will be better, but very boring. There's going to be people that they download their one. Obviously it's the toughest people to convert are the people that downloaded Facebook once in their life, and that's the internet and social media to them. And that's going to be the hardest to move people past. And there's always going to be folks like that, but hopefully they can be, hopefully that doesn't need to be monopolistic and limiting anymore, right? Hopefully that means they're using this one app, but lots of other apps can interact with them. Lots of other apps can continue to use the same primitives, and they can get access to sort of the full richness of the entire ecosystem rather than using just one app. So yeah, that's the direction I'm trying to push things in, at least.
Well, it's an exciting future, and you are a part of that exciting future. So thanks for coming on and talking about App Proto, Live Peer, Streamplace, and all the other interesting video technologies you've worked on. So thanks again for coming on.
Yep, thanks for having me. And of course, shout out to I'm live streaming development of Stream.place every single day on Stream.place. We've got the app live in the iOS, in the App Store and the Play Store. So go ahead and grab that. And if this is something you're interested in contributing to, we've just got everything moved over to GitHub, and just got sort of our first round of external contributions coming in. So really hoping to pick up the velocity, polish off all the little bugs that I don't have time to take on and that sort of thing. So yeah, excited for the future.
Great. Thanks, Eli. I'm really excited to see what you'll build.
Thanks very much.